recover the power of the energy that we were supposed to have since the beginnings of time, starting with the trauma of birth, the transgenerational trauma. Everything that is in my body as a container is a lot of that, plus joy and pleasure. And we want to enjoy life. So let's enrich the conversations and the solutions. From grief to pride, the pride of being born, the pride of going through shit and pleasure in life, so that life is the psychedelic experience without psychedelic, because it is a mess and it's beautiful. We just need to be safe and contained by this time in life. Look at people's eyes and see, we got you, honey bunny. We got you. Of course we got you, because you've been doing it all. And you don't have to do it alone. That's all. And you can melt in those arms, that image.
This is the Gifts of Trauma podcast. Stories of transformation and healing through compassionate inquiry. Welcome to another episode of the Gifts of Trauma podcast. I'm Rosemary Davies-Janes, and I'm here today with Jem Rothbard and our guest, Inés Zabalaga. And we welcome you to listen to our conversation where we'll be focusing on everything related to menopause. Inés, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you to you both, Rosemary and Jamie. Thank you very much. I am so grateful for the opportunity for many reasons, but also I feel like I carry with the voices of many women that would be expecting the conversation as a way to start again the conversations that we are not having, so that we are having one today.
Thank you. We will include your full bio in the show notes, but I wonder, how would you like to introduce yourself? What, other than the dry facts, do you want our listeners to know about you? Who are you?
I'm a very curious creature. I think that's been the case since the very beginning. I am made of melted circumstances and cultures. I was born in Bolivia, but grew up in between Mexico, Central America, and Uruguay. And then I went to live to Bolivia when I was 25, until now that I live in between Bolivia and Canada. But I feel that in me, there is this combination of so many elements that by the time I started studying, I wanted to study myself. So that's why I studied psychology. Probably that's behind every psychologist, the curiosity around what is this combination of things and how can I make sense of the way I think, the way I feel, the way I move, how I choose my relations, what happens after. So I did study clinical psychologist, and then I saw the iceberg in as a whole, because I was just looking at me as a tiny little piece of it. And then the systemic approach was like, wow, this is huge. And then the systemic approach, which is one of my main interests, taught me how to see the relation of everything and all. And from there, I moved to family constellations, because the systemic approach brings a lot of information and knowledge around the relations and the communication. But family constellations completes the opportunity for us to see really the energetic factor, which is information that comes from the past and from past generations, and how it is transmitted to our bodies and that into our life experience. So I do that. I work with people, sometimes in groups, sometimes in retreats, or in one-on-one, helping people and trying to, show us as an element of just facilitating the opportunity to go deeper into the understanding of what is going on with me, what is happening, and why am I building around me the world that I'm building. So to question that is one of my passions. That would be me, a very curious creature.
I love that. What a beautiful introduction.
Thank you.
As you may have noticed with your clients in the media, there is a lot of talk, a lot of questions on menopause these days. I wonder if you can take us into what is going on there.
And I also have to just jump in and say, I want to make specific space for perimenopause in this conversation as an often overlooked or invisible thing that so many of us are experiencing right now. And so the invitation is expanded to also name perimenopause
Absolutely.
in the conversation.
Yeah.
Since you are a systems person, what is the entire system of menopause? Does it start at perimenopause and end postmenopause? Or can you sketch that out for us? Is there a structure?
Formally, menopause would start after you have been 1 year in your irregular cycles, and then it's gone for one whole year. And then you can call yourself lady in the menopause. What I find in these ways of dividing also the experience of us all is probably another way of understanding, but also of controlling what's going on so that we can relate to stages and bring the medicine that is for that stage, when in reality is I don't know, sitting and seeing a flower bloom and say, okay, exactly when is that the fourth petal is going to do what it has to do so that we can know and we can bring solutions to that. I find that has been forever a way of teaching us how to relate to our body according to our natural cycles. So it can be so brutal the way we understand our natural way of being if we divide it into all those stages that actually happen, that actually from a biological and in general health perspective are useful, of course, but at the same time keeps on erasing the nature of it, which is this is a natural process. And we've been treating it as a medical issue, something that we need to relate to so that we have an understanding of the whys and the what to do's. And so in Uruguay, for example, where I grew up, when you get your period, the language is, I'm sick. That's what we are taught to say. So when you are 13 and 14, once a month, you're sick. And it's in a very low voice that you say, I'm sick. You start numbing what's going on and pretending that everything is all right. And that's just, I find it so sad. So I'm not even in that stage of, I still have my period and I have it in very regular and very crazy ways. But I found myself last year starting to relate to menopause because it's coming. And because supposedly I have to get ready if I'm going to go for hormone replacement, or if I'm going to go crazy, or if I need to go to the doctor. So I was already in that system of beliefs that I'm going to have something that is going to be so difficult and it's going to be so different. And nobody's having the conversation around, yeah, it might be difficult. It might be different and it is going to be okay. And that sensation is what, that kind of sensitivity is what we are missing. The sensitivity around we need to feel safe in our bodies because the body is doing the work of nature. Instead, we feel that like the body is against us in many occasions. And that belief, talking about trauma and how it operates in menopause, imagine that belief working in our bodies like they are the enemy. I just got the, how you call it?
Goosebumps. I'm already appreciating the way you're framing this conversation up. The baseline of beliefs that's established in your case in Uruguay. There's something wrong with me. I'm sick. That is the introduction into this very natural process. Is that still, like you talk about as a girl, this is how it was. Has that progressed at all? Or I'm curious. Is it still something people say in Uruguay? Is I'm sick? Yes, big yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. This is how I refer to that.
And then what do people call menopause? How is that framed?
Yeah, menopause, but at the same time it's the end of so many things. So it's the end of you being a reproductive being, you being productive, you being young, you being a possibility for so many things in life. It's the end of so many things. And I feel it brings a brutal overcharge in our bodies that are dealing with the history of everything that we have done already and are tired. We are exhausted. Women, we are so tired. And we are supposed to keep it up. And what is missing in the conversations also, even in most of the feminist narratives that are about us getting to places of more equal opportunities, is, and this is not at all me being feminist or any other ideology behind what I'm going to say, but the lack of support from the system in general, but particularly from men, the way that they are dealing with their own processes, but the ways where they are not supportive because they went away, because they were violent, have created this rupture where one of the most important and most common trauma-related symptom is that we have convinced ourselves that we are alone, even if we are in relationship. Deep inside is that voice, we are alone. So again, we are constantly, maybe not even consciously, dealing with this belief that we need to make it work. And we are like a big spider trying to check on every corner of that multidimensional net. So I'm wondering, honestly, right now as we talk, how much is the organic, natural process of a body that was getting ready to reproduce life? And we bring life. And then it's the moment for more connection with ourselves and the wisdom of nature and the wisdom of the existence. And that's hopefully when we are supposed to be more in contact with us and giving knowledge, giving different things, not life. But then the stress of the body and the mind and the spirit in the changes gets into this not feeling safe. And that is just, I feel, one of the factors that is the most brutal. And we don't talk about that. I have found myself in situations where I got divorced twice. It's been very difficult to see myself again in a possibility of this was just my experience related to my repetition of trauma because my father was also violent. And so I am repeating and I start the healing process. And again, we lack the systems of support for us to get there and feel so much support that the natural process will be totally different.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you got back to that point, Inés, because what was going through my mind is I was flashing back to my early days in perimenopause and my first irregular period. What the first thought is, oh my goodness, am I pregnant? And so you described the image of a spider. I was like a spider scurrying all around the web. Could this have happened? And looking at my calendar and what was I doing on that date? And it was, so I wonder, you work with women in this. I wonder if you could share a story or two that sort of illustrate the arc of what women have gone through that you've worked with and maybe match that up with how you would love to see them received, how you would love to see them supported going forward.
Yeah, for sure. You saying that, I remember, so I work as a psychologist also supporting women with psychedelic assisted therapy. And let me tell you, when I've been in retreats with men and women and in retreats with just women, the sound of it gets into your skin like something very different. The way men are healing and the way we women are healing, it's such a loud scream. Such a loud scream. Women, we are craving forever for support. And the support might be in between women, with men, but in general, with the system. There was one of my clients that started working with me probably 2 years before she came to this retreat. She was working with her stepfather as her boss at work. And that was the abuser of all of her infancy years. And I think this is one of those cases where you are like, "Oh, okay, this is how much our system is going to continue trying to pretend that we are okay in situations that were never okay." So our sexuality and the ways that we have not been feeling start from so young, so early in times, that if you work in a retreat or in a group of women or in a group of mixed men and women, and you ask who has suffered sexual abuse as a child, you're going to be super surprised to see how the majority, but probably two or three, are raising hands. So when it comes to women, this lady, she started just word therapy process for, I like to work on preparation for retreats. I dedicate so much time to preparation that sometimes psychedelics are not needed because we made it to understand what was needed before that. But in this case, she really needed it. So she went to the retreat and started connecting with the so many times where she was abused, not only by this man, but by others. And in a big fire, she was able to just burn pictures and burn little objects from the altar and have a full expression, cathartic expression of the body and of her emotions in a safe place where she was holded, where she was finally crying what she needed to cry, screaming. Bad wording? Is that how you would say it? When you speak only bad words? Like,
Cursing.
uh-huh.
Cursing.
So that the space was open for her to really do what she needed to do, so that at the end of that process, and now it's been probably 2 years since, she was able to see how much she was in constant threat and her body was constantly giving the signals of that she was never going to make it. So she left the work and started a very different process, which is doing nothing. And that's another space where we are totally not used to. A woman never does nothing. Don't do nothing. We're constantly doing something. And that was her conclusion of the whole retreat. And I need to do nothing. I need to experience the tiredness and the sadness and the grief for some time. And we did a beautiful work of also including the possibility for her to family constellations and the systemic approach is consider how you are in the family. So the mother and the father of this woman, and fully adult, supported her through that process where she was doing nothing but looking after herself. And that was luxurious when it should be part of our life, that we go to the doctor and we get something more like, it is natural and you're okay and I'm here to assist you. Let me know how would you like to be assisted. Instead, we go to doctors with perimenopause, menopause. We go to doctors in those stages, and the most probably is that they will give you antidepressants so that you don't feel sad or you don't feel the emotions that it carries with. And here we go again, pretending that we are fine and buying the beliefs and the narratives of a broken system that says just go with it and try to be functional. So stopping and not doing nothing in this case was the medicine that probably we all need. Like, give me a break. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was wondering if you could say a little bit to the woman who's out there listening who invariably is going to say, that's not possible for me. And what can doing nothing look like for a woman? We did a little research and found, for example, in this midlife study of women aged 42 to 50, 75% of them are parents, and 85 of the same sample are employed. And we found similar studies in the Netherlands. 80% of all perimenopausal women are employed. Of those women, 68% are supporting not only children, but also elder relatives Let's talk to that woman. What can doing nothing look like on a more microdose level?
We're taking a brief pause to share what's on offer in the Compassionate Inquiry community. Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you've been listening to our podcast and are curious about the Compassionate Inquiry approach, developed by Dr. Gabor Mate and Sataram Kaur, consider joining the professional training program. It's open to all healing professionals, including naturopaths, physicians, body workers, coaches, and therapists. In addition to learning how to use compassion to support your clients in their most vulnerable moments with greater empathy and authenticity, you'll also deepen your own internal process. If you're interested, look for the link in the show notes.
What can doing nothing look like on a more microdose level?
I think it's when we steal ourselves from places without permission, unapologetically. We steal ourselves, and I find the little group of women, call it circle, but that is frequent. A place where women are healing between women. And why just women between women and men with men? Because we deal with different circumstances. And this is an organic, totally different experience to be this ecosystem. In relation to the bigger ecosystem that is the world, the combination comes up in a very different way. So when we are in between women, we are in the opportunity of stop the hiding, because when there's a man in the room, we hide more. Stop the hiding, even if that is once a week, once a month. You go with a group of women that is a yoga breathing retreat, whatever we do as a group, and it may grow. I work with circles of women that it's just an open space for women to come and join. And if they want to do it 1 month and not the other, it has to be a breathing room, a flexible opportunity for us to relax and find others, and sometimes find the support of others to reconnect and rebuild the social fabric. We are not going to go back probably to the times when men and women were living and nothing, contemplating nature was part of life. We're not apparently going there. So we need to build little spaces that make sense for us to relax and to have the sweetness and the love and the opportunity to reconnect with whatever it is that is true for us, that is our truth, and that is not keep on buying the information about how to deal with the problem that has been medicalized, and that you are, again, the problem and you need to solve it on your own. All those are symptoms of trauma and collective trauma in the body of each of us. So when we go to the group, it feels like, it makes sense, even if it is 2 hours, where we can hold hands or just look in each other's eyes. And if it is facilitated, compassionate inquiry has circles that are beautiful. If it is facilitated, you may have an opportunity to express what's going on in that week for you. And that makes a lot when it makes sense for us. And it's not something that they build it for us so that we can go back to a different box. Now that we are more wise, we are more wise than ever before as we get older. And we find less room in those little boxes. Hopefully they are never, ever again comfortable, if that makes sense as a metaphor. The boxes where we hide and where we just buy what mainstream is saying that we have and that is coming, and that we better get ready for the most challenging of all the stages of pretending that we are okay. Yeah. So I would recommend that. The power of rebuilding a little bit of the social fabric, connecting. And there are so many. I'm happy to give resources for women that need that connection. And so powerful, because in the arms of another woman, we all can relax. Men also need that. I don't know how much time we have, but I have some words for men also, because it's wow.
Inés, in this conversation of nothing or alternatives to nothing, you did something that really got my attention. Once you said, once you get to a group of women you're supported, you can, and that exhale to me represents some degree of that nothing we were talking to, because there's a level of unburdening that you're speaking to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to relearn also how to relate to women in a way that we feel safe around women, because we all come from a mother. And this is, again, if we wanted to talk about trauma and menopause, how those two relate, it is very difficult to find a mother in the generation before us. I'm 51, so that generation, and even father, our grandmas, find one that was in the possibility of really feeling supported, doing nothing when she's tired or when she's grieving or and she feels that she can dedicate her life to raise this baby, take care of the baby until the level of dependency allows her to just let them go. So we all come from very difficult experiences of our mothers, some more, some less. But the reality is that if we relearn how to go to women in these opportunities, therapeutic retreats, compassionate inquiry circles, if we learn to go there with trust and enough love, and we really melt into it, we've been through the same, we are all the same. There's nothing particular, there's nothing private. And you spend time, I'm talking physically, I'm saying go back to the possibility of trusting the body of another woman. I've been lately in Bolivia with a beautiful team researching on how to go back to the possibility of really feeling safe in the body of another woman after we have had a difficult experience with our mother. So we call it the laboratory for reconnecting with our mother, and we do LSD in high dose for 2 women at a time, just two with a team of 3. And because LSD is one of the finest, most beautiful ways to go all the way back, with a big chance that you may find yourself in the realm of the perinatal stages and even before. So when they go there, and it happens so often, all that information of tension that comes from the confusion of when we were babies, and then when we got separated from our mothers, and giving birth being probably one of the main traumas that we carry in our body. And that happened with her. So when we heal, that's a big one. That's a super major big one, the reconnection with our mother and with the energy, and for us to feel relaxed there. Stanislaw Grof says that they have a more difficult time, because if it was so difficult for them in relation to the energy of the mother, then in time, unless it's processed, they carry with this tension. And when the tension goes against the possibility of really, truly seeing women in a beautiful, respectful, adorable way, it's just, there's going to be a lot of fight. There's going to be a lot of rupture. And it's going to be different for women, because we need to renegotiate with nature. We need to renegotiate if we want to be mothers, if we want to be sisters. We need to make a different deal with nature.
Yeah. I wonder, could I just interrupt with one of my special interests? I was adopted as an infant. And speaking for adoptees, in my case, I was adopted because my mother was unable to have a child. She had an early hysterectomy, and she didn't go through menopause either. I think maybe she went through menopause when she was 35, and I was very young. That's interesting what you were just saying about the LSD journeys, because I had no role model, and I had birth trauma, must have, because being given away as an infant. So it's just wanted to bring that up. Do you find that people come to you who have similar mother issues, if I can just bundle it that way, and that impacts or weighs into their menopausal journey?
Absolutely. And I wish it would be more people doing it, that reconnection with that fundamental energy, from where you talking and I listened to you, and it was like Jamie at the beginning saying, can we acknowledge that you are a little bit with the sore throatiness and you're a little bit sick? Can we acknowledge that you come from 2 ladies that were unsupported?
Yeah.
You don't come from just one. You were not adopted because she was not able to have kids, but because the other one also was not in the possibility. So the lack of support is major there. And the fear that grows in our bodies because of the lack of support, I think I don't know if there's research around trauma being this amount of fear, causing all these chemical also situations where we feel that we are not going to be able to reproduce, to produce, to be beautiful, to be all that we are requested to do. And the worst is coming. It's so scary. So scary. So to be able to reconnect and like that, bring our bodies the beauty of, hey, no, you are a beautiful miracle of life and you're going through different moments and it is going to be okay. And you're never alone. And we're going to find a way to do this together. And we're going to stop the nonsense once we are like, okay, we can do this together. And it's okay if you go crazy one day, if you have a bad day. I always tell my daughter, she's Julia, she's 20, she's a beautiful young lady. And I'm always like, honey, you know what? If you see a crazy lady like around my age, just having count. There's so many good reasons that are behind someone that is going nuts in this stage of life. But not just women, but also if we can heal together and we can see also how much the wound of not feeling supported now in these days is coming backwards. Like women now, we are attacking them. We are being really difficult. The whole gender violence is flipping over to, how women now we are not showing up with respect for them, doing psychedelics as a way of therapy to be able to reconnect and understand how much fear and how much anger comes from the energy at the beginning of times. And we can release it and we can be humble and sweet and come back to this beautiful opportunity of, in reality, what we want is connection. That's all we want. And compassion and to be seen, and that men can see us and they're like, wow, you did so much. And we can see them and say, you've been doing so much as well. Just we've been doing different things. And in this moment, I do not wish to be treated as someone that is sick and is going to be unable. I just would like to be treated with the highest respect.
Yeah. Respect and compassion. Yeah. Be a soft place for me. Treat me as someone who needs care and love.
That is medicine. That is
Yes.
medicine right there.
Yeah.
It's huge medicine. What I'm really appreciating from this conversation, what you're articulating, Inés, is we're able to really draw back into the beginning of time, our time, even the birth, even in a non-traumatic birth. That's not actually true. Every birth is traumatic because it's a ripping away from your first home.
It's in those months is dying. We died. We've been an aquatic being for 270 days and then we are totally different. It's the rupture of everything without advice. You don't know how much is going to be prolonged suffering. So LSD has been calling my attention so much and my eyes to maybe we can do something for what happened there. Because now what is happening now in these days, let's say Bolivia, my country, if you go, I had my babies natural, but that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe in the rural part of Bolivia, some, but not in the official medical system. Women are not bringing life like that anymore. It's a program, surgery.
Can I just, I was just going to interrupt you for a minute and ask, what do you mean by they don't get a natural birth? So what you're saying is that if I'm a pregnant woman in Bolivia and I go and see my doctor, they're going to schedule a cesarean. That's how a baby comes in, bar none. That's just how it's happening.
That's how it happens in the majority of the cases. And if you hope for something different between women, between doctors, and between, in general, the society, you're crazy. Why would you do that? If you can program it and it can be without pain, why would you do something different? So we are so apart from that. And what is happening is that if the baby and the mother in that moment, they do not make the effort to survive in that particular moment, all the power of believing that I am worth this life also is playing a role there. So we are stealing women and babies, doesn't matter if it is a baby male or female, with a chance to start life with the sensation of, I made it through and I have the energy of, it was difficult, it was tremendous, but here I am. And that power is just, I believe, also one of the invisible situations that is the systemic and the collective trauma that we are creating. And then when you are in these stages, like if we want to relate that to peri or menopause, we carry with so much that, for God's sake, of course we're going to, as they say in Uruguay, we're going to get sick when we are in these stages. And we're going to get more foggy and more emotional. But I wonder if it is so much the whole organic process or the way we've been dealing with this. The ways we've been dealing with this is a problem.
Can we also just say that this is the first time I'm 48, I'm in perimenopause, and I feel at once so lucky because for the first time, I think our generation is the first one that gets to actually name what's happening when we're in it, perimenopause. It's also, to me, frustrating to see my life and to understand that there's not very much in place to support me moving through it, as we've been talking about. That's another thing I have to go do. I have to go and create that for myself. And I have to also do the awareness in my family and in my relationships about this is what's happening to me right now, whether you believe it or not. But I look at myself so lucky compared to Rosemary, compared to other women, to my mother, who I think back and I remember now she was going through that. And I treated her like a crazy woman. I was in adolescence and I treated my mother like a crazy woman. So now I feel horrible about that. But let's talk a minute about what's it like for you, Rosemary, as you are witnessing this surgence of awareness. What's it like for you?
It's amazing because when I was going through it, it was very much, you don't talk about that. Like not even to girlfriends. Nobody wants to talk about that. And I remember being so puzzled because theoretically, when I had thought about going through, I think we didn't even give it the name. I think the change. And when I thought about going through the change, it's going to be great. I don't have to buy tampons. It's not going to be this mess every month. But then I fell into this deep grief that took me totally by surprise because, again, in my isolation, I'm losing a key part of what it is to be a woman, as you mentioned earlier. And I can't reproduce. This diminishes my value as a woman to society. This turns me into an old person. All that. It was all just rattling around in my head. I'm so happy to see today the conversations are being had. I'm less keen on the medical conversations because the Western world, from my perspective, is far too quick to medicalize and pharmacize and diagnose issues that probably would be very easily worked through with regular conversations, stealing time away to meet with your women friends, jumping into a circle, even just meeting with friends for coffee or lunch and just talking about what's going on. Because typically friend groups are around the same age. And if it's happening for you, it's happening for others. So again, less reliance on experts and more reliance on just natural wisdom and wise women and grandmothers and that type of thing. Yeah.
I think of also another piece in this puzzle is how are we having the conversations around sexuality that are more and more open, for God. Finally, when we get together with friends, female friends, and we have this very open conversations about sexuality, we may start treating our bodies with a little bit also of more respect and opportunities. Respect and opportunities with the way we ask the questions that we ask ourselves, the way we talk about our bodies and about our own experiences, and in particular, the way we are having or not having conversations around pleasure. You think about the conversations that we have, like sexual education at schools or And it's all about fear of getting pregnant. Is you need to have this information so that you take care of that not happening to you. But in reality, we want you to do that at some point, just not now. So our body is a machine of trying to, it's coming in Spanish, darle gusto would be like to be, how do you say, complaciente, to complacer, to please the system, please the system in the requires that the system has. And then one day we find ourselves not even wondering about pleasure. There's so many possibilities are coming up late in life. I didn't know that was a possibility or that existed. I had a conversation with Julia, I remember when she was 16 around pleasure. And she was like, this is weird, but at the same time, it's interesting. So where did you say I had that thing? And there is a possibility that I find it on my own, that I find my own clitoris before it's discovered, like America was discovered by Spain.
Well, before your clitoris was discovered by a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inés, I'm fast forwarding as I'm listening to you talking, and I'm bringing that to the lived reality of many women going through perimenopause. And I just want to bring back a couple of things I've heard both of you say. Rosemary speaking to how our understanding and the conversation about menopause and perimenopause is very medical right now. And if I think about the most popular podcasts that were listened to in 2024, they were about perimenopause. But I'll tell you, they were quite medical conversations. Our bodies are going through so many changes that we don't have words for, understanding for. We just think we're anxious. We just think we're full of rage, and then there's the shame that happens on top of that. So I appreciate all of the information that's coming out that no, this is actually like a neurotransmitter issue, that my serotonin is out of whack, that my sleeping hormones, my melatonin is out of whack because I'm not sleeping through the night anymore because I'm getting up to pee 4 times. There's just so many things that like we're getting awareness of this medical that I so appreciate. And at the same time, quite often, the call to action in these conversations is hormone replacement therapy, HRT. That's usually the endpoint of a conversation. But if you're me, then you have history of breast cancer in your family, and it's not a good option for you. So it's not a panacea, and we're still not being given like a full spectrum of options. And I think that's one of the things that you're really carrying and bringing into this conversation right now. Let me say one more thing, which is on the sexuality piece. If perhaps like my clitoris was left to be discovered by me instead of Christopher Columbus, it might be possible when my sexual drive disappears after I have a child when I'm 37, that maybe I wouldn't have blamed myself so much. What is wrong with me? What happened to my sex drive? This is so many women that I've talked to and worked with over the years that then have to deal with shame. And it's a whole other deep layer of what's wrong with me, that I cannot show up for my partner's pleasure. So I really am hearing it in a new light as you're talking about the pleasure conversation, that if we put ourselves in the center of it, then we're much more equipped to be at the center of what's happening when we encounter perimenopause.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say all those things that like, it's great we have a medical conversation, but it can't stop there.
Yeah, we can combine them. Whatever is good for one body that is not the same for the other. It's not polarizing, but let's be honest and bring the whole conversation so that it enriches our possibilities to make sense and decide in total freedom. But I think you mentioned something that is key here, which is recover the power of the energy that we were supposed to have since the beginnings of time, starting with the trauma of birth, the transgenerational trauma. Everything that is in my body as a container is a lot of that, plus joy and pleasure. And we want to enjoy life. So let's enrich the conversations and the solutions. If microdosing LSD is working for me, I'm not menopause, but I've been saying that I was menopause last year. I was like, what the hell? Why I was doing that to me? Because my friends were doing it. And it's okay, I guess we're doing it and it's coming. And I'm not there. It's removing, stealing ourselves from every time we notice that it's been a conquered space in our bodies from narratives, from medicine, from beliefs. Every time we notice, let's go and still ourselves and do something different from the grief of whatever was difficult and sad to the pride. It's the ultimate space where we need to go. So we die.
Yeah.
Big smile. From grief to pride, the pride of being born, the pride of going through shit and pleasure in life, so that life is the psychedelic experience without psychedelic, because it is a mess and it's beautiful. We just need to be safe and contained by this time in life. Look at people's eyes and see, we got you, honey bunny. We got you. Of course we got you, because you've been doing it all. And you don't have to do it alone. That's all. And you can melt in those arms, that image.
stealing time away, liberating ourselves when we notice we're sinking into the conquest. And I love the whole conversation around pleasure. And what I would just like to add is sensuality is alive and well post-menopause. That does not end.
No.
Those myths about you're no good anymore as a woman, total myth.
Maybe what we are not good at this point in life, and maybe we are not noticing our body saying, I am tired of giving service. Then, because we relate sexuality to having sexual relationships with a man or with another, might be a woman, but another given pleasure. And maybe this is a time where the satisfier or our hands or whatever fantasy will do a beautiful work for us to connect with pleasure. It's back to us. And this is the challenge of these days, that we recover the power, bring it back to us, and stop buying what is not serving.
Yeah, I love that we're landing here. That was where I hoped we would land, because the most beautiful way that we can be framing up this time we're living in with the awareness we have is also the power that's available to us to reclaim, that Rosemary's talking about. She's saying it's alive and well on the side. And I came across a statistic that postmenopausal women are 65% happier. And I was just wondering, with that big smile on your face, Rosemary, what you would have to say about that.
Inés touched on it. The whole putting yourself second, serving others. We've grown old enough and wise enough to have realized that's not a healthy way to be. A lot of us. I won't say everybody, everybody's different, but a lot of us have matured through the process. And I'm single. I'm happy to have a relationship. Probably don't want to get married again, because that's that service. It shifts. I think as you get older, and many people have spoken about this, Oprah very publicly, you get really clear on what you will and what you won't do, and what's okay and what's not okay. And I think that's one of the great pleasures, even when it comes to a sensual, sexual perspective. Certain things that you might have tried to please a man when you were younger, it's like either definitely yes or hell no, I'm not going there. We're just much clearer. Perhaps to men, we're less confusing. We know what we want and we express it.
I think we're a big challenge also. We represent a horrendous challenge of accepting that the mother is gone.
Yeah.
Even for our partners, that the mother is gone, that we have to be equals, and that I can see you and you can see me. And that's it creates a lot of uncomfortness around us, because we are not doing what we've been doing. If we are heading towards a healthier opportunity for us, is to be connected with ourselves. That we cannot betray that anymore.
Yeah. And you mentioned it earlier when you talked about societal expectations. Society expects a lot of us at different stages in our lives. I'm expected to be retired. That's not happening. I'm expected to live a certain way. That's not happening either. So I think just really, I love that liberation from the conquest. If we think of societal expectations as aspects of personal conquest, let's just free ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the metaphor of Cologne. Now I'm going to see Cologne in very different eyes. The decolonization of our bodies and our hearts and our minds. That's probably a beautiful way to think of what can we do? What can we do? We can do this. This is the work.
Excellent. Inés, thank you so much. I wonder if you could just speak very briefly about the retreat. I'm sure listeners will be very intrigued as to, we'll post the link in the show notes, but can you maybe just walk us through how it is for someone coming from overseas or out of country or out of area to participate in one of your retreats?
Yeah. So I've been doing that. I've been living in Bolivia for the past 24 years. And now, just recently, last year, my partner, being from Canada, needed to come here. And so we moved, and I'm partially there and here. So I'm a little bit still finding again where's my land to land. And maybe it's going to be like this for some time. So we host retreats in Canada and in Bolivia now. We do the work together, and the retreats are available for people that are client of us or people that have a very clear referral from someone we know, so that the space is curated in the safest possible way, especially because psychedelics are still in that area where it's not totally legal. Some places of the world are for some substances, not for the others. So we always try to pay attention to, let's work on preparation and with people that we know. So people can make contact with us. And the most probable is that we're going to start conversations that are going to end up looking more like a whole therapy process before a retreat. So that's one thing that is important. In Bolivia, we normally are there between the end of the year, November. In November, we have retreats. We actually have 2 coming in November for both. It's mixed groups, men and women. And then possibly in March. In Canada, we're hosting one in September now, this year. But for women, it's normally when I am there and it may grow in Canada or in the world. So I can make grow groups or opportunities, and I love to have conversations just one-on-one that may help people to grow their own spaces and possibilities. We normally also take volunteers to come and join us to learn, which is a beautiful spot for those that are interested in learning about the work. That's also interesting sometimes because it has to be like the mycelium of life. It has to be shared.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So there will be a contact form on your website that people can use to get in touch. Beautiful. I have one final question. We've covered a lot of ground today. If you could leave one thought, one gem or pearl of wisdom for our listeners to contemplate after the show, what would you like to say?
It would be something like, go back to the root of truth, stop the noise and the nonsense, and steal as much as you need to steal for time for you to go on a individual solo journey, whatever that is, a walk, cup of tea, group. Let's stop that pretending that we are okay in doing this on our own. Let's do it together. And if you are alone or suffering, make the effort and reach out. I know there are many women like me that will be happy to just make it grow, an opportunity for healing.
Thank you so much. Those words of wisdom will no doubt resonate with our listeners. Inés Zabalaga, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your perspectives. It's been inspiring and enlightening, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have been left with so much to consider.
Thank you.
Inés, woman made of melted circumstances. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you to you both, Rosemary and Jamie. Thank you very much.
The Gifts of Trauma is a weekly podcast that features personal stories of trauma healing, transformation, and the gifts revealed on the path to authenticity. Listen on Apple, Spotify, all podcast platforms. Rate, review, and share it with your clients, colleagues, and family. Subscribe and you won't miss an episode. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personal therapy or a DIY formula for self-therapy.